have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How are you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
Hello, I'm Matt Donnelly. That's Tera Roberts, and that is Major Caldwell. And this is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, episode 142. And on today's show, we're going to talk about the fantasy football's most overrated players heading into the 2022 season. When I talk about overrated, we're talking about guys who are rated or valued too highly when it comes to fantasy football. Maybe the hype is becoming too real. Maybe it's getting out of control. We are here to rectify that for you once and for all. But before we do, let's talk about the weekend that was. Major Tera, I don't know what your weekend was like, but man, at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio, we had ourselves a party. And as the kids would say, it was lit. Yeah, I see Major shaking his head.
Don't do it.
Not only are we presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group, but the Fantasy Points Group themselves hosted the Friday night events that involved cornhole and socializing. And on Saturday, you had the Kings Classic, you had flag football, you had the quarterback skills competition, and Sunday, Major, Sunday. You know what goes down on Sunday in Canton?
Nothing.
Karaoke.
Okay.
Picture this. Let me paint the scene for you.
Please
Scott
don't.
the King, Scott Angle. You remember Scott Angle on the show?
Yeah. Yep.
He went out there. He went on to karaoke to a little Vanilla Ice, Baby. And then he also hit Aerosmith's Walk This Way.
Nice.
So it was a pretty good time going on there. We also had a little bit of I Like Big Butts. I think that came on by some 80-year-old from a local resident, which was actually fantastic. And I will never think of that song ever again the same way as I did. But one of the highlights from this weekend for me was that Kings Classic. You're talking about the who's who in the Brown, in the Blanda division. Now, I was in the Dawson division, kind of the international flavor there, represented by England, Hungary, South Africa, obviously North America themselves, Mexico, Canada, United States. I mean, everywhere and anywhere, Australia. We were representing the Dawson division. Half of us showed up. There's about 8 of us in the draft room live. The others were online watching Brentford beat Manchester United, which was fantastic, by the way. Apparently, it was very traumatic to some of our soccer faithful in the draft. But what happened is we did our auction draft and then we did our snake draft. And luckily for me, we had Drew Davenport on the show just the week before to kind of give me a little bit of information. I had the perfect plan.
That's you, a little sneaky. You
Absolutely,
did it on purpose.
Absolutely. So I had the best plan together. As you guys know, when you go in your auction drafts and your snake drafts, plans are great and all, but they don't exactly come together the way you kind of hope it was. Now, I see Tera on her TikTok video going at it, talking about driving the price up, being that price enforcer, so to speak.
Evil.
It's good every once in a while, but when you're with people that know that's what you're going to do, it becomes a little bit difficult. And sometimes you get caught holding the bag. Sometimes it works out, like Mike Huff paying $14 for Trey Lance. Meanwhile, I paid $14 for Jalen Hurts much later on in the draft, but that's not here nor there. Let's take a look at some of these rosters that came out of it all. Let's start with the auction draft in the Kings Classic. I'll get you guys' opinions here. So there's kind of a couple things. When I put this together, I put a list of my values for each and every player, where I think players are worth, what that value kind of comes together. And then I kind of look at how my roster construction is going to come together. And that is, I'm going to spend $80 at wide receiver, $80 at running back, 10 at quarterback, 10 at tight end, just to kind of keep that nice and balanced. And then from there, I kind of allocate those funds to, say, $40 on a wide receiver 1, 15 at wide receiver 3, 25 at wide receiver 2, and kind of assign a value per my roster spots.
Mm-hmm.
And like Drew Davenport mentioned on the show, if you go over, if you go under, you kind of put a -6, -2, +5, and kind of keep an idea of where you're
Did
at.
you know that
So
before, or did you take that from the show? You knew that before?
that I took from the show. The
Nice.
whole thing
Yeah.
there, I took that from the
Uh-huh.
show. So I felt I was pretty prepared. So it started off this auction, it went off the chart right off the get-go. Guys like McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson, $68 to $72 of a $200 budget right off the get-go. So needless to say, I'm of the mind where I'm too cheap to really be doing auctions, but I also hate losing in an auction. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to back on out of this for the first 8 or 9 rounds and see how everyone kind of plays it out. So if I pull up what I have here for our screens here, pulling it up, here we go. So when it was all said and done, let's pull up the auction, right? We're talking auction right now. So my roster ended up with A.J. Brown for 46. I only wanted to spend about 40 on a wide receiver 1, but the way the wide receiver 1s are kind of going off the board, I was like, okay, Stephon Diggs just went for 42. I need to make sure I get myself the last of what I consider a wide receiver 1. That's kind of where he went. Leonard Fournette at 35. Elijah Mitchell, 17, friend of the show, hopefully very soon. Got to give a little bit of love for our guy there, Elijah Mitchell. TJ Hawkinson kind of caught everybody sleeping. Now, the trick is, because this is an online auction, it's timed. It's not just an auction. You're going once, going twice, going 3 times, sold. It's like the timer 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So if you turn your head around for a second, you may miss a bid. I also thought it was important to follow that up with some solid wide receivers in Darnell Mooney. Now, here's where I caught myself. I got into a bidding war for Jalen Hurts. I only wanted to spend $10 at the quarterback position. So I got caught going $13 on Jalen Hurts.
Who was running you up? Who was
Travis Seeley from True North. I know he's the Eagles fan, so I wasn't going to give him what he wanted. That's basically how that worked out. So the next player nominated,
you're ready to battle to the end, right?
Well, I thought he was going to keep going up. Let's be honest. So then the next player up for bid was Joe Burrow. And guess what? I got him for $8. Nice. Why did I get 2 quarterbacks? Why did I spend $21 at the quarterback position? Because I didn't want anyone to get Joe Burrow for $7. I could not let that happen.
That's being petty, dude. That's so petty.
It's petty. You know me as well as anybody. I'm going to be petty. So when Joe Burrow's at $7, I'm like $8. I'm hoping, hey, someone bid. Let's keep this going. No, I got caught price enforcing and got stuck holding the bag. That all said, I ended up with $6 left over when it was all said and done. So that didn't really affect anything. I wish I would have maybe allocated that funds a little bit better early on with a running back or something like that. But then Christian Kirk, another guy we love on the show. Irv Smith Jr., another guy we love on this show. James Cook, Jacoby Myers, Garrett Wilson, Rashad Penny, George Pickens for $1, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Jameson Williams. Lots of upside on that bench, really deep.
Pickens for $1 I think that's the steal of this whole thing. He's going to be the MVP. Or not the MVP. He's going to be the rookie of the year. I mean, like that kid got juice.
Absolutely. When you look at the snake draft and the auction draft, Chase Claypool went for more than what George Pickens went for. He also went ahead of George Pickens in the snake draft. And am I missing something here? Like, I'm pretty confident. Listen to Greg Cassell talk about George Pickens as the number 1 wide receiver in this year's rookie class, if not for the off-field issues. Talent-wise alone, George Pickens is as good as they come, especially looking at these other wide receivers. And he's in a place where they seem to be able to handle situations in which Pickens is coming from, so in Pittsburgh. So I felt pretty comfortable about this team, not top-heavy, missed out on some of the big guys. But if you look at it, I wasn't going to pay $52 on a Derrick Henry. I wasn't going to get caught doing that. So I wanted to make sure I stayed under 40 or right around the $40 for a running back. And Leonard Fournette really was the best of what was left. Tara, you looking at this roster here real quick. What are your original thoughts?
Quick question on George Pickens. Was that before or did the draft happen before or after that game?
This would have been Saturday, early morning.
Early morning. And they played on, I can't remember.
Yeah, so this is about 10 a.m. But here's what happens. When you're in an auction and you play your cards right, a lot of the guys I got late and you see the draft, $1, $4, $1, everyone was already out of money because they went top heavy early on in the draft. So it got to the point where people couldn't spend more than $2 on a player because they spent so much on players early. The Pickens one caught me surprise. I was willing to pay a lot more for him. And with James Robinson, I'm going to go full Jock Peterson here, and I'm going to stash him on my IR until he's ready to go. So I feel pretty good. This is also a 14-team league. Now we flip it.
So the Steelers played Saturday. So you snagged that Saturday morning. So that's you making a solid pick, a steal right there, right before the breakout game. So yeah, you got a massive steal.
Every once in a while, a blind squirrel finds a nut, right? And I mean, that's basically what happened there. So
yeah,
then
I 100% agree with you.
He had Tera on speed dial. He was helping him with this draft. Like, he did too well for Matt by himself. Did your wife help you? That's why she went down there?
No, she didn't get there until the snake draft. So we're going to look at the snake draft too. And like I said, I'm looking at this roster, and this is a typical Matt Donnelly build. Balanced throughout, top to bottom, not too heavy anywhere else. But like I said, 14-team league, so much potential on this back end. We're looking at 4, I think, rookie wide receivers on this team, plus James Cook. So we know as the season goes on, week 8, week 9, week 10, these rookie wide receivers, that's when they start to hit their stride more often than not. Now, when we take a look at the snake draft, similar type situation here on how this team unfolded. Basically the same build. I had the 11th pick, and I hit Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara as my first and second round selections. Full PPR type league. So I feel really good about getting 2 quality PPR type running backs out of this whole thing.
You weren't concerned with Kamara's
no, I'm not. This also goes back to the show we did with Drew Davenport. If Drew's not concerned about that, I think we're seeing the suspension keep on getting pushed back. I don't think we're going to see that suspension in 2022. And now I believe we're going to start to see Kamara start to sneak up a lot of draft boards. So here in a 14-team league, getting him in the second round feels like stealing. And then I follow that up with 4 wide receivers that I think are going to be absolute target hogs for their teams in Terry McLaurin, Darnell Mooney, Christian Kirk, Elijah Moore. So you can already see the similarities between these two teams. And the best part about doing the snake draft after the auction draft is you know how much certain owners value those players.
Yeah.
You've already seen them bid players up. So if you sit back and you watch, you have a pretty good idea. So when Chase Edmonds came up, I know Mauricio got himself into a bidding battle that he lost in the auction. Mauricio picked 3 picks after me. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to get him. I'm taking him right now because he's not coming.
During the draft, you were just over there taking notes was it mental notes or did you write it down?
Oh, no, I was taking mental notes. I was also sitting beside Joe Bond and Wazzy there. They're kind of talking about player 1, player. They're like got some kind of weird deciphering code because they were kind of teaming up there, kind of picking the team. And then I said, you know what? I want Joe Burrow as my quarterback. I want that continuity between the two teams. Joe Burrow went right before, and I had to settle for Dak Prescott. So I don't feel terrible about that. Cole Kmet. Isaiah McKenzie for me is a really interesting one here in the 10th round. We know that the Buffalo slot receiver is going to be productive. Cole Beasley did it for multiple years. I feel that Isaiah McKenzie's got a hold on that position, so I feel pretty good about Isaiah McKenzie there. And then again, here comes the youth. Wan'Dale Robinson, again, a rookie I'm not leaving my drafts without no matter what. Rashad White, Jameson Williams, guys I got again. And then I went Evan Ingram. Based on Andrew Cooper, they're talking him up a little bit in the offseason. I mean, I feel pretty good with Cole Kmet. I don't really need that other tight end. Deshaun Watson and David Bell. I really like David Bell. Another one of those stacks, right? So I feel pretty good about this. Again, it's all about that depth. In a 14-team league, you have to have that depth already in place. And again, Jameson Williams, another guy I could stash on that IR. So I feel pretty good about everyone I selected between these two teams. And I avoided taking anyone that I have as overrated, which means even more to me. In fact, at the end of the day, this really did feel like I was getting my guys. So I felt really good about it. I feel like a good solid 3rd or 4th place finish on both these leagues is more than attainable at this time. Maybe not the top heavy type teams, but I mean, I feel pretty good about it.
A lot of potential there. Yeah. A lot of potential. None of like the big names that everyone goes for. And like, I have a top 3 or 4 team. Your team can be anywhere from 6 to 1, just depending on how the season rolls out, you know?
And like I said, you just got to get the playoffs. And I think in a 14-team league, that is where that depth becomes so much more important.
Yeah.
Making sure your roster is built for the depth going deep.
And you got all the rookies. Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you got all the rookies who have potential to actually produce right now. So you did it. I think you did a really good job in those drafts.
I feel pretty good. I mean, we all feel pretty good after our draft, right? I mean, that's kind of typically what we do. I know I felt good after the first 2 rounds. First 3 rounds, I felt pretty good, but we'll see. Now, we all know that those were my guys. That's kind of, we did a show on that a couple weeks ago. We talked about that, and I kind of followed that. I followed through. I put my money where my mouth was, so to speak. But now we're going to talk about players that we see as being overrated. But just kind of a touchdown here first on a couple of these injury news. Zach Wilson, knee injury. Tera, original thoughts on that?
I'm not super concerned. They said that the surgery was successful, so they should be good to go at the beginning of the season. Maybe he misses a week or so, but it's not a long-term thing. So if Zach Wilson was your QB2, or maybe you're looking at how that affects Elijah Moore or Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, maybe, I don't think there's a lot to be concerned about.
And then, Major, over to you here on the Kadarius Toney being hurt. I'm on record saying I think Kadarius Toney has the ability to put up more fantasy points per game than A.J. Brown, who happens to be a wide receiver 1. However, water is wet and Toney is hurt again.
Yeah, it's totally your fault. You said his name and he gets hurt. No, but I think he's already back. I think reports today said he had a leg injury. He came back. He's practicing. He's not going full out, but he's on the field. So I don't think it's going to be too serious. So I think just don't say his name too many times, Matt, please.
What's the limit? 3? And then it comes true. Is that basically what happens?
Yeah, it's like Beetlejuice.
And whatever I do, don't stand in front of a mirror and turn around when I do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hail Mary, yeah.
And then the last piece of news I want to catch, I want to get both of your opinions here, starting with Tera and then moving over to Major. Tom Brady going on vacation in the middle of camp. Is this a big deal or is this no deal? Tera?
No deal.
Oh, my God. It's a huge deal.
There we go. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for a little bit of back and forth banter.
Let's just go here. Let's take him out the equation and put any other player in the league. I don't even care. Any quarterback. Think of it as Aaron Rodgers. They would have murdered Aaron Rodgers in the media saying, like, he's not serious. Oh, think about if Cam Newton would have done that. Like, it would have blew the internet up. Like, I mean, one, it's a veteran move. He's one of the greatest players of all time. I get it. You can do whatever you want. But it's like, come on, you can't do that when you should have did that like 3 months ago. Like, why are you doing it now? It's just a waste of everyone's time and energy. And they said he was upset about his offensive line not being right or hurt. It was something else going on there where he kind of like pouted before he left. So I don't know. I think he gets too much benefit of the doubt. Like, to me, he's one of the biggest divas in the league, even more so than Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, what are your thoughts, man? I want to hear what you got to say.
Well, I'm going to turn this back to Tera for counterpoint on this here in a second, but we talk about a player who he doesn't need the practice. Let's be honest, he doesn't. I mean,
everyone needs
in the locker room, but in the locker room, Major, your thought process, if you are out there busting your arse off and someone goes, you know what, I'm just going to take a couple of days off or weeks off. We don't know how long he's out for. We don't know when he's coming back. Mm-hmm. We don't even know why he's gone. This was apparently prearranged before camp even began. And that has more concerns to me than anything. Does this somehow tie into the whole Miami Dolphins thing? The tampering? I don't know. We don't know. No one knows. So
wait,
for me,
time out. Are you saying that this is like a fake suspension, kind of like the Michael Jordan theory, like why he played baseball?
No, that was the whole gambling thing that Michael Jordan way back when. Remember that? Yeah. I don't think it's like that, but I mean, I don't know what else you can even think it is. I mean, do you have something prearranged for family time? And why would you do this when you had June and July ahead?
Thank you.
It's very peculiar for me. So Tera, why are you okay with this?
I'm a Packers fan. I've been conditioned to be like
good answer. That's a great
with
answer.
Quarterbacks that have, for decades now that have, odd habits in the off season. So hey, it is.
Tera with the win. You won that one. I give that one to you. Yeah, that was a great counterpoint.
All right, well, we got to get into this most overrated type players here. We're going to go quarterback. We're going to give you a running back each. We're going to give you a wide receiver, a tight end each. And maybe if we have time, we'll throw in a little bit of flex appeal because there are a lot of overrated players, especially as it pertains to fantasy. We're watching ADPs be driven right up the board on a lot of these guys. And we're also seeing guys that once were good that may no longer be good, but because of name brand recognition alone, they are still getting drafted a lot higher than they probably should. So Tera, at quarterback, who is your most overrated player?
It's Joe Burrow for me. Again, I think I've spoken on Joe Burrow before. Yeah. It's no offense to Joe Burrow, none at all. He's going as QB6 right now, and unfortunately, I think that's his ceiling. And it's not okay to draft players at their ceiling. You're looking to draft them at their floor or even lower than that because you want to be able to get that value, that upside. And unfortunately, I don't think that Joe Burrow really has the upside to get into that 1 to 5 range because, again, unfortunately, he is not a running quarterback. Can he run? Yes, Major. I know he can technically run, but he's not a running quarterback, and he's going to get those stats that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, even Dak Prescott, who's rumored to get some uptick in his running game as well. So then you got to look and compare him to guys that are more pocket passers like Tom Brady. And, comparatively, do I want to take Joe Burrow at number 6 or Tom Brady, who I can get around like 8 or 9 right now in terms of ADP that I'm seeing right now out there? That's, I'm going to lean towards Tom Brady because I think he can sustain that level of high production that will push him into the top 5. I don't think that that's going to be something that we're going to see from Joe Burrow. We're basing a lot of that off of the ceiling that we saw in the latter half of last season with some very high games. We're going to see a different kind of floor from him. So he's overrated for me, unfortunately, at QB6.
See, I don't like that comparison so much to Tom Brady because Burrow actually has something that Tom Brady doesn't have last year, that Tom Brady had last year, and that's an offensive line. I mean, Karros, Kappa, Collins, huge additions for Joe Burrow in the line. But I agree, you're not going to get much as far as running production. And we all love that Konami type code. That's what sets a lot of these quarterbacks apart from one another. Speaking of that Konami code, Major, you have one of those Konami type quarterbacks as being one of the more overrated players. Who is that?
Yeah, I have to go with Josh Allen. He's being drafted number 1 overall in pretty much every draft, ahead of 2 years ago, the greatest quarterback to ever walk the face of the earth. Like everyone, he can do no wrong, Patrick Mahomes, and all of a sudden he's like ranked 2 or 3 behind Justin Herbert as well. So one, it doesn't take the NFL a long time to catch up. Like I just said about Patrick Mahomes, it seemed like he can do no wrong, and it seemed like they kind of figured him out just a little bit to make him look almost human. And Josh Allen's getting a lot of that talk, a lot of that accolades from everyone saying he's going to be the man and all this good stuff. Second thing is he's a cold weather quarterback. Like you get those games where it's going to be hard for him to throw the ball. He could make it up with some rushing, but I think they're trying to protect him a little bit more now. So you're going to see him run a little bit less, at least like called plays for him to run. But just those two are the biggest reasons. I just think the NFL, it doesn't take that long for them to catch up to people. And I think they're going to get a read on Josh Allen sooner than we think.
What about the weapons in Buffalo? You got Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, who a lot of people are high on, Isaiah McKenzie there, Jamison Crowder, James Cook, Devin Singletary. It seems like he's got some options if he chooses to spread that ball around.
Yeah, you can say the same thing about Joe Burrow. He has 3-4 receivers and a tight end who can like take a 5-yard play to the house. So, again, cold weather is harder to catch the ball. It's harder to throw the ball. The ball is more slippery. There's so many different things that go into playing in cold weather. So I think that's going to like not hinder him enough to make him like fall off the face of the planet, but let's chill on him being a number 1 quarterback in the drafts. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I can see where you're going. Josh Allen's basically been the quarterback 1 2 years running. So make it a 3rd year. He's got nowhere to go, right? He can't go any further up.
Right.
He's got to come back down. And when we're not talking about these players that we absolutely hate them. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. We don't hate these guys. Right. It's just based on what that ADP is talking about. Now, a player I do hate, especially based on the ADP, Tera just talked about drafting a guy at their ceiling. Do you draft a guy who's sitting on a ladder on top of the ceiling? Because that's where Trey Lance is right now. He's on top of the ceiling right now. The guy has 16 career starts in college and the pros. 16. And he's currently like the QB 8. We just watched him go in an auction for $14, more than what Jalen Hurts went off for in the auction. I think this is getting ridiculous. The hype around Trey Lance apps, and he hasn't done a dang thing yet. I think this is a case of we haven't seen him fail, so let's pump him up. He hasn't done nothing yet, so let's pump him up. We see this with lots of guys going into year 2 that haven't done anything. Trey Lance doesn't have that. He doesn't have that production profile developed. I can't see how we're looking at him as a top 10 quarterback. And now he's going to have a chance where teams, and you, Major, you said this just a second ago, teams are now going to be able to prepare for him ahead of time each and every week. This isn't him coming in the second quarter for Jimmy Garoppolo and going out there and doing things that teams aren't quite expecting or not understanding what he's done because there's not a lot of tape on him. They're going to have tape on this kid, and I'm not knocking him. He's got that Toney that Tera loves. He can move the ball with his legs. He's got a rocket of an arm that I don't think he's quite developed yet to that accuracy. I mean, it's going to come. He's got the talent.
Good to me.
It looked developed.
I think in Dynasty, I think in Dynasty, he's going to be a fine option. I think he's going to have that trajectory of a Lamar Jackson, of a Jalen Hurts, except maybe better because I think that arm is more lively. I just think teams are going to have him figured out this season, and he's going to have to learn to adjust that because in this San Francisco offense, there's a player coming open every single play. That's how Shanahan designs things, and it's going to be Lance being able to find that guy. If he can find that guy with consistency, then fine. I just don't see that right now in 2022. 2023 and beyond, absolutely. But right now in redraft, the hype is way out of control, and I think we need to pump the brakes.
I don't know. As a 49er fan, I liked what I wasn't on board at all. But
no choice but to be on board now.
But I was still mad about it. I was still talking crap. But looking at him play the other day, he had way more command, and I thought the deep ball looked way better than it used to look. There's going to be interceptions and stuff throughout the season. I think that's just part of being a rookie, but you're going to get those splash plays. You're going to grade that with the 80-yard touchdown and like 60 yards in the air. Like you're going to get some plays that's going to be like, okay, we're going to forget those 10 to 15 interceptions you're going to throw because you're doing like 30 touchdowns because you're just running and throwing and doing all kind of amazing things.
I'm going to save my judgment as the preseason wears on, but we're talking about week 1 in the preseason, and these defenses are playing vanilla type offense. I mean, it's vanilla right now. Let's call it the way it is. I'm not buying it. I'm not. Go ahead, Tera.
I will say I don't think he's being drafted at his ceiling. I think he's being the ceiling is high. It's a lot higher than where he's being drafted. He's not being drafted at his floor. I think he's being closer drafted to the floor. So it's kind of in a middle gray area where unfortunately you're right. You're having to reach to get him. So you're taking a risk. So it's more of a risky pick. I don't think it's necessarily that you're drafting him at the ceiling.
16 career starts in college. He's basically a rookie coming in here. I'm not into it. But what I am into is fantasypoints.com and saving you guys some money here right now by entering promo code Vipers22. That'll get you 10% off that subscription to one of those one-stop shop for all your fantasy football needs. And now, Tera, give me a running back that is way overrated.
It is poor Antonio Gibson.
When it rains, it pours on Gibson, doesn't it?
Yeah. We got to be careful with Gibson stats because I hear a lot of times of people, they say the value prior to this weekend and seeing the split that happened and the punishment that happened with this fumble in the preseason game. But prior to that, a lot of people were saying, if you look at where he has finished prior in 2021, he finished as the overall MPPR RB12, which sounds good in theory and means that in theory, where you were drafting him at, you are getting great value on him. But the problem is that you can't look at those overall statistics. You have to look at the average points per game. He averaged 14.3 points per game. That is not the average that you want for a guy that you are drafting, where you were drafting him. And it was very inconsistent as well. Unfortunately, the problem with him is that his team just doesn't show a lot of confidence in him. And when he makes these mistakes, like this weekend when he fumbled the ball, Ron Rivera has a very short leash for Antonio Gibson, unfortunately. He pulled him, then he put him with the second team. In practice, we heard that he was running punts, running with the second teams, and he's going back to the first team. There's a lot of volatility here, and he's, the coach is unfortunately going to be hard on him to try and get his head right, trying to get him back into the game because the talent is there. Unfortunately, it's just not matching the output and the opportunity on the field. So my worry about Gibson, unfortunately, is that I do think we're going to see a good amount of Brian Robinson. Ron Rivera has made it very clear exactly what he wants to do. He wants to do a committee. He hasn't beaten around the bush about that. There's no confusion on it. He wants to use both of those backs, and he told us exactly how he envisioned it. And then you take that into account, the fact that J.D. McKissick is going to be involved as well on passing downs. It's a big old mess that I just don't want any part of, unfortunately. So I think his value is going to drop. He's very overrated right now, unfortunately.
Man, that's
Brian Robinson, he's just a young bull. Robinson's just a young bull. He's going to do what he does. He's going to go run between the tackles, pick up those yards. We've watched the preseason. Gibson's already bouncing everything back outside, and that's not going to cut it with Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera's kind of got that, is cut his teeth in a tough type offense. We've seen him running this before. Jonathan Taylor, D'Angelo Williams. Except when he did that in Carolina, when they both had successful years, there was no JT McKissick or J.K. McKissick involved in this whole thing. McKissick, he throws a whole new dynamic to this full-out RBBC here in Washington. Major, hit us up a running back on the West Coast.
Man, I have to go with Austin Eckler, man. And it hurts me because he loves the fantasy football community. He's all about us. He's donating. He's doing all kind of crazy stuff. He's just the man when it comes to fantasy football. He's a man when it comes to playing football. The guy runs so hard. And that's the thing that worries me the most about him. He just like runs full speed every single play into people. He's not trying to preserve himself. He's getting up to that age where it's kind of on that borderline of like, hey, he's getting to the age where running backs usually kind of start falling off a little bit. So, I mean, he's being drafted as a top 5 back. I don't even see him becoming a top 5. I'm like right outside, maybe 6 or 7, but I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about Eckler, and I really like Isaiah Spiller, even though he didn't really perform that well this last weekend, but he actually showed that he can catch the ball a lot more than he did in college. So it feels like they have plans for Isaiah Spiller, and they're going to lessen Eckler's load to like preserve him for the playoffs, because I think this team has a chance to make a pretty good run. So I think they're going to preserve their star players and not put as much wear and tear on them so they can be ready for the playoffs and potentially Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Chargers have probably the best lineup top to bottom in the entire National Football League.
Yeah.
Offense, defense, you look at it. I mean, they're ready to go. We've also heard Eckler talk on other shows as he's made his rounds through the fantasy football community. He embraces Isaiah Spiller being there, taking some of that workload off. He's even said he's not the biggest guy out there. He doesn't. The wear and tear on the body adds up. And I think Eckler, though, could be one of those running backs who becomes more efficient even if the volume decreases. We've seen him with Melvin Gordon a few years back and how that dynamic worked. I think you can still see Eckler have some efficiency, still be productive. Top 2, top 3 running back, that's going to be tough for him to repeat. But, I mean, I think he's still going to have top 6 potential there. Tera, quick thoughts on Eckler. I can see the wheels turning.
Yep.
No, you guys know I disagree. Austin Eckler is my RB2. I won't do a long deep dive, but for me, I know there's some touchdown regression that can come in there in terms of his rushing touchdowns on the ground, but unfortunately, that's not going to make a huge difference. Or unfortunately for you guys, that's not going to make a huge difference if he sees a loss of 4 or so touchdowns on the ground. That's still going to make him statistically a top 3 back. And all his other statistics, they line up with what he's been able to achieve in previous seasons. So I'm not highly concerned that there's going to be a significant amount of regression here that's pushing me off of having Austin Eckler as my RB2.
Yeah, one more thing about that. The one thing that worries me about that is that they're using Isaiah Spiller the same way they would use him. So they make it more interchangeable instead of like you're more Isaiah, you're going to be more the third down back or like a change of pace type of back. They're using him in the same capacity. So I think they have plans to lessen that load. So I think it's going to be way more than just 4 touchdowns. It's going to, 4 touchdown regression, I guess.
I don't think it is, and I don't even know if Isaiah Spiller's ready to step into that role.
Okay, we'll see. I'm the quarterback guru. That's what I'm saying. When I play this back, and you guys be like, "Man, Major knows his stuff."
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not too concerned about Eckler as far because I think he can become efficient without the volume. I think as the season goes on, if he stays fresh, I think he's going to be more productive later on in the season. I think that's something that's right up there. And it's not just about the running the ball. Sure, he's got about 45 touchdowns over the last few seasons, but of those 45 touchdowns, 24 of them have come in the passing game. And I think that's where the real value in Eckler actually comes from. Now, for me, I'm going to talk about another aging running back, one of those big backs. Size does matter in the NFL, and the older you get and the bigger you are, the more wear and tear is going to eventually be on the body, especially if you have that upright type running style. And it's Derrick Henry for me. He's overrated. I know Tera, I don't even have to look at the screen right now. She's already going to disagree with me, but I'm telling you right now, 25% of the time last season with A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry faced stacked boxes. Now he's traded A.J. Brown for 5 screws in his foot after that Jones fracture. And prior to his injury, Henry was producing his lowest yards per carry average of his career, 4.3, which is a full yard less than what we saw back in 2020. And that's while he was healthy last season. Volume, it's still going to be there. But unlike most, I'm not very optimistic here. The risk for me and where he's going does not outweigh the reward. And I'm looking at this, and Henry, I just can't get behind it. I can't get behind this Titans offense. I don't believe Robert Woods is going to be that guy to help spring this offense suddenly. Treylon Burks, I haven't seen enough of him to say, you know what? He's going to take the attention. He's going to get that extra guy out of the box. None of these receivers say
he's looking good in camp.
Been good. Yeah. He's been good, but he's not good enough to get another guy out of the box. I'm sorry. I'm still keeping that extra guy in the box. And it's going to be a lot more than 25% of the time. And I'm going to make Tannehill beat me with Robert Woods and with Treylon Burks. And we're seeing the steady decrease already in Derrick Henry. He's getting a little bit older. Maybe he has a year left in him. Maybe he does. But I'm of the mindset of getting out a year early than out of it a year late. And in redraft, it could pay off for you, but it could also backfire, especially with first-round draft capital that you're likely to having to invest in him to roster him in 2022. Now, Tara, I'll give you a quick counterpoint on this because I know you have something to say.
No, I mean, I agree with you in terms of the fact that, you know, the yards per carry were down last year. Stacked boxes is going to continue to get worse this year as well. But the only thing I will say, all of those issues that we had last year, when he played, he averaged 24.2 fantasy points per game. Jonathan Taylor's average was 21.9. So yeah, it's kind of like a Najee Harris situation where the yards per carry might not be awesome, but if the average is there, what does it really matter? He is the workhorse. So I think the workload is still going to be there, and the average points per game will still be high. So he's still justified as my RB3 in my opinion.
Yeah, I just can't get behind that. It's way too much. RB3, you're going to have to take him in the top 6 or 7 pick more often than not. I mean, you might get him at the back end of the first if you're lucky enough because other people feel very similar to me. But he's probably going in that 6, 7, 8 range. I can't do it. I'd rather have a Joe Mixon or even an Austin Eckler at this point at the 106 than Derrick Henry. Now, turning our attention to the wide receiver position, Tara, who's that wide receiver right now that's overrated?
Unfortunately for me, it's Tyreek Hill, and it's not a knock on Tyreek Hill at all. Unfortunately, it's not a knock on Tyreek Hill at all. It's a knock on the fact that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are unfortunately combined on the same team. And honestly, how much volume can Tua really push to both of these guys? That's my big issue here. I don't think it's a possibility that it's going to be able to produce 2 top 15 wide receivers. So something's got to give here. Something's got to give between the two of them. And unfortunately, I don't think we can predict what's going to give between Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle because it all comes down to Tua. And we could see him say, you know, this is Tyreek Hill. He is fast. He is one of the best, most reliable receivers in the league. I'm going to target and lean on this guy. Or we could see him say, this is my guy, Jalen Waddle. I'm incredibly comfortable with him. He's my college teammate. He's the guy that's returning. I know that I can succeed with him. We don't know who he's going to rely on. It could be inconsistent. So for me, Tyreek's just going a little bit too high with the risk and inconsistency that could be there. That's it. No knock on Tyreek.
I think Tyreek at the end of the year is going to be in that wide receiver 8 to wide receiver 14 range, but it's going to be boom or bust. We saw this last season, and I don't care where you finish when it's all said and done. If you can't give me any kind of consistency, I can't roster you.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't trust that production is going to be there. Sure, you're going to give me wide receiver 8 numbers when it's all said and done, but you're also going to give me wide receiver 56 numbers in a week that I really need you, and that is something I can't rely on. I just can't. I think Jalen Waddle is going to be the more consistent of the two. I think Tyreek Hill could end up with more fantasy points when it's all said and done. But when you look at the games and what's all said and done, I think you're going to see Tyreek Hill hit 40-point weeks. I think you're going to see him hit 6-point weeks, where Jalen Waddle is going to be 20 across the board. And I find that to be more valuable. And that's why I think Hill may be overrated. Now, Major, give me a wide receiver right now that is overrated.
I'm going to go with Michael Pittman just because I know how much Tera likes him. This is just a troll pick. But yeah, with Bateman, I think a couple weeks ago, I said that, he's not a true number one. And I still believe that. You just can't do it one season. You have to do it more than one season. And now you have more people on your team who are equally, if not better than you. I think keep an eye on Alex Pierce. I think he's going to have a really good rookie season. And I think finally Paris Campbell is going to have that breakout season that we've all been waiting for. All the truthers out there that's with me that love Paris Campbell. Like, that's like one of my favorite players. So I just want him to win so bad. Those injuries suck so much. It's like ruined this guy's career, but I think he's going to have a good bounce back season if he can stay healthy. So that's already 2 other people that's going to get peppered with targets. I think Matt Ryan's going to try to spread it around. He's in the past, he just threw to Julio only, and it kind of worked for him, but I think it's a new day for him. He has like all these young guys running around. I don't think he had that in a long time. So I think he's going to be excited. I think that Pittman's going to take just numbers wise. I think he's going to get better as a receiver, but just his numbers, I think is going to take a hit because I think Alex Pierce is going to get a lot of targets this year.
Well, your Pittman take from a couple weeks ago was the first time ever you got the double head tilt live on the show, which was perfectly synchronized. Now, Major, you just said, and I'm paraphrasing here, Michael Pittman can't be that guy because he's only done it one time. However, you follow that up saying Paris Campbell's the guy, and he's never done it.
I say he's my guy. I love Paris Campbell. He's like Ramondre. Those are my guys. You know what I mean? Like, man, Gibson's one of my guys.
At least we've seen Ramondre on the field. I can get behind that one. We've seen Ramondre. We haven't seen Paris Campbell.
And I've seen you get behind him, Tera. You owe me some apologies for all the torture from the whole year before, all that crap you were talking about Ramondre. Now I see him all in your videos and everything. So I'm waiting for that apology. Not right now. Whenever you're ready, just Twitter, whatever. Just
I will not
that
apologize for that. You do not. This is fantasy football. You do not have to pick a player and stay with them forever. If situations change, no, just no. I will not do that.
That's how I play Dynasty. I pick a player and they're mine forever.
No, that is not how I'm doing it. I'm going with. This is a year-to-year basis, and if situations flip, I am flipping my opinion to what is correct. I was right last year about Damian Harris. I was correct last year about Damian Harris. I will be correct this year in terms of thinking that Ramondre Stevenson has the higher upside. So nope, I'm not apologizing. I'm doing fantasy football right.
I said whenever, like I said, it doesn't have to be now. It'll come to you.
It's not happening.
So I'm going to combine both your worlds here because I'm going to talk about. I've got more shares of Josh Gordon because, hey, I'm sticking with Josh Gordon than I do of Gabriel Davis.
Yeah.
Stop this right now. Davis has yet to catch more than 40 passes or hit 600 receiving yards in a season. But after one game against the Chiefs, suddenly he's now a top. Games. He's a top 25 wideout on 2 games. 2 games. You just told me, Major, once again, that Michael Pittman can't be that guy because he's only done it one season.
Yeah.
Gabriel Davis has only done it for 2 games. 2. So, yes, he's overrated. Look, the stats right now. Laviska Shenault, you following me here? Laviska Shenault has more receiving yards in his career than Gabriel Davis. It's got to stop.
Those last 2 games were like some of the best games I ever seen in my life. It looked like Jerry Rice mixed with like I don't know, Tim Brown and Randy Moss. The guy was like the greatest receiver ever to play the game.
Suddenly, Gabriel Davis is the love child of Randy Moss and Jerry Rice. No,
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
not happening. Stop
And
it.
Paris Campbell.
Yes.
Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell's like the fun uncle in this whole thing or something.
Hey,
yeah.
There would be no Paris slander. Thank you very much.
I can't wait. Hey, Major, let's bet eyebrows on who's going to be more productive, Michael Pittman or Paris Campbell.
I would never in my life do that. Wait, who said?
Because you will lose. So why would you want to do it?
I would never wager anything on my body ever. What do you mean? We'll do some push-up competition or something. I don't know, but I'm
never getting into a push-up competition one way or the other. Because
hey, but you just shave your eyebrows and stuff because it's Wednesday. Like it's not a real like bet for you. You know, I have everything to lose. You have nothing to lose.
So, Tera, who are you betting on as being more overrated at the tight end position?
You know, Tera's always going to go against me because she's a hater.
Moving on to tight end. I am betting on TJ Hawkinson being overrated, unfortunately, which is funny because I just took him in a mock draft today because he dropped incredibly low, because he should be dropping incredibly low, because he should not be going where he is currently going. He's a lot closer to tight end 2 or tight end 10 than he is to tight end 5. I'll tell you that much. When you look last year at what he did, he got off to a fantastic start. He had 2 fantastic games. But again, you have to remember that was way before Amon-Ra St. Brown had time to acclimate to the NFL. They had literally no receiving core. It was just TJ Hawkinson. So of course he was great. But as the season went on, things got a little bit more inconsistent. If you were looking at him, he wasn't that top tight end that you needed. He was averaging 10 fantasy points per game for the remainder of the season. That's just not enough to justify drafting him as high as tight end 6. And unfortunately for me, he is very overrated. That ADP has got to drop for me to have any interest in him.
Yeah, I like Hawkinson. I think he's a great player. I think he's got some value to be had there, especially the tight end position as a whole. But look, Jameson Williams, DJ Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams. There are plenty of offensive weapons in this Lions offense that are going to cut into. It's it's underrated.
Yeah,
it
really
is. You look at these teams, the Lions,
like, wow.
And it's one of those teams that we like to make fun of, this and that. But top to bottom, they're probably in the top 30% maybe when it comes to offense at the skill positions. I really like what the Lions are doing, especially that offensive line. Like Frank Ragnow he is probably the best center in the entire league. He is just one mean dude. But that being said, speaking of mean dudes, hey, Raider Nation, we're full of them here. And apparently you're going to put a little hate on one of our guys.
I'm just going to say Darren Waller, and it has nothing to do with him at all. He is one of the best players. The guy's just all-time tight end. But Devontae Adams is there, and Devontae demands like 100,000 targets every game. So, and I don't know if you guys, when you were smaller, when you were in elementary school, you had a best friend, just like the number one person that you loved, and then all of a sudden some other person came into your equation, and now like those 2 people are like best friends you kind of left out. I kind of feel like that's what's happening with Darren Waller. Like when I look on Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff, you always see Carr and Devontae hanging out, drinking beers, laughing, having a good old time, and you never see Waller in any video. So Waller just at home kind of like, hey, you remember me? I used to be your favorite person, and now I'm not. So I think it has nothing to do with him. He's going to have a great season. I just think he may even fall out of the top 5 if things, because Devontae is just like one of those receivers you have to throw the ball to every play. He's open every play, so you can't. And they have that relationship from Fresno State. It's like a lot of things that connects them a little bit more than Carr to Waller.
Let's go back 10 years. I know Adams and Carr worked out in the offseason, multiple seasons now. I think they get together just about every offseason. And the one thing that the Raiders are lucky to have outside of Devontae Adams is they've got another pretty good player there, pretty good route runner, perhaps one of the best route runners in the National Football League.
Yeah.
Who's that wide receiver? in Vegas.
It's let me hold on. Let me do my my best major voice. It's Hunter Renfrow.
That was perfect.
And that is not my voice. Thank you very much.
You got to get more of that growl. Hunter Renfrow.
I thought I wouldn't be able to stop coughing, so I had to
Right.
kind of like,
And done for the rest of the show. But yeah.
yes.
But I mean, you're right. There are plenty, just like Hawkinson, there's so many mouths to feed in Vegas. And unlike Detroit, they're upper echelon type players. I mean, you've got Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. I mean, you think Adams is open every play. Hunter Renfrow is just as open on every single play. I don't think
he's so slow that no one's covering him because it's like the game's moving faster than he is. But yeah, keep going.
Hey, one of the villains that was the hardest to defeat for Flash was a dude that ran at like super turtle speed, man. The Flash was too fast, couldn't keep up with him. I mean, that might be what happens if that's where you're going. But we're talking about Hunter Renfrow. When you're that good of a route runner, it doesn't matter. Now, for me, the guy I am avoiding at all costs, he might not even be overrated. Maybe I just want to keep piling on. But yet, people keep talking about Mike Gesicki as a viable option for those who've missed out on the tight end position. No, baby, no, that's not how it works. Listen, Waddle, Hill saw 60+ targets each out of the slot. Cedric Wilson, also predominantly a slot receiver. Do you want to guess where Gesicki played primarily last season? In the slot. That doesn't work. You can't have 8 guys line up in the slot. This isn't pick up and go. This isn't the playground. You look at this. According to PFF, 60% of Gesicki's receptions came out of the slot last season. Yeah, that's 44 of them. Mike McDaniel's offense demands that the tight end block, a la George Kittle. You have to get in there. You have to get dirty. And when you look at everything goes on here, if I'm a fantasy manager right now, I am shopping Gesicki and taking whatever I can get for him. It doesn't matter. He still has a name brand associated with him. I am trying to get out of that no matter what. You've still got Hunter Long there, but just for fun, let's look at some of these inline snaps here at the Dolphins tight end position. Gesicki had 827 snaps, while Durham Smith saw 715. Inline tight end snaps. Durham Smith, 521. Gesicki, out of his 827 snaps, 99 were at the tight end position. I know I make fun of Kyle Pitts for not being a true tight end, but Mike Gesicki, that's not going to get the job done. And you're just going to be out there. If you can't block, you're not even going to be on the field. It's that simple. So for me, I am completely out on any hype, anything that comes out of the Mike Gesicki camp. Count me out. Now let's give some bonus players here. We've already given you 12. We've talked quarterback positions here as far as Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Trey Lance. Running backs, Antonio Gibson, Austin Eckler, and Derrick Henry. Tyreek Hill, Michael Pittman, and Gabriel Davis. Tight ends, Hawkinson, Waller, Gesicki. Let's give the people a little bit of a flex play here as we close out the show. And Tera, who's that flex guy for you right now that is completely overrated?
Unfortunately for me, it's going to be Jerry Jeudy. He is going way too close to Courtland Sutton, who I believe is going to be the alpha in that offense. And, unfortunately, they're both very talented, but we can't look to last year in the distribution and who was the receiver that had the upside in that offense, because we're talking about a completely different offense, a completely different quarterback with a completely different skill set, a completely different coaching staff as well. So unfortunately for me, I got to lean towards Courtland Sutton because I think that's where Russell Wilson is going to lean towards. And I think we've seen that from Courtland Sutton before, that he can be that alpha. We haven't seen that from Jerry Jeudy, unfortunately. So I think that we're drafting him a little bit too high, hoping that that's what he'll be able to achieve. And he might actually just hit below that. So it's Jerry Jeudy for me, unfortunately.
The truth be told, the right answer here in Denver is both of them. They're both overrated. They're both being talked about too much. KJ Hamler is the guy. I can't wait till KJ Hamler somehow outproduces both these guys. Then it'll be absolutely hilarious.
Never.
But yeah, Jerry Jeudy was the kiss of death, essentially, for Courtland Sutton last year. Yes, I guess Russell Wilson said he's got experience running with 2 top-type wide receivers in DK Metcalf and in Tyler Lockett. So there is a possibility that he could do that again with Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. But like Tera said, we're talking ADP, where they're going, and that is why we're going to be out on some of these players. It's not because we don't like them, except for me. Most of the guys I have on here I don't like. it's because of where they're going and the players around them that you could be selecting instead. Now, Major, I don't even have to hear your reasoning, but I'm 100% behind you for the first time on this show.
But I don't even
Who's that
want
player
to
that's
be behind
overrated?
me. Man,
Actually, you might actually convince me to be against you when it's all said
right,
and done.
exactly.
So let's hear you out.
I gotta go with Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, shout out to him. He's my daughter's favorite player. Quick story: she went to her first USC game. He wore number 9. When I played, I was number 9, so that just became her favorite player because of that. Because she loves her dad, so that's like one of my favorite stories. So thanks Juju for that. But I don't. In the off season, in the practices, he's looking like the man. You look at any highlight reel or practice reel or whatever, and it's all Juju all over the place. He's making all the plays. Him and I can't remember the name right now, but the rookie they just picked up, Sky Moore. They have all the highlights. You don't see anyone else. But don't get fooled by Juju, man. Like, man, I love SC players. Again, he's a number 9. Any player wearing number 9, they got a soft spot in my heart. But it's just I don't see it happening. I think Kelsey's going to be wide receiver 1 in that offense still, and then number 2, I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, because I have a lot of shares. Miko Hartman, and hopefully can finally step into that role. No, don't do the double head. Don't try to make another meme, guys. Relax. So think about it, when Hill was hurt, was it a year or 2 ago? That's when you see Miko Hartman step into that role and run the routes that Hill was running, and the guy was unstoppable. He had like some of the best. He had the best like 2-game run that we've seen in a while. So, and also in I just read somewhere that he was doing the same thing. He's running all the Hill routes. I think Patrick Mahomes I think he's the one who quoted, that was his quote. He's saying like Hill has jumped in running all the routes that Tyreek Hill used to run. So I'm just doing a basic math. If he did it then, why not now?
I mean, I believe Juju has an ability to do that because I don't believe in Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I don't believe in Mikael Hardman. I think Sky Moore is the guy who's going to make a big splash there in Kansas City. Now, anytime you get the double head shake or the double head tilt, I mean, Major, you lost me. You had me there going with you for a while. But as soon as you threw in Mikael Hardman's name, I mean, that kind of basically discredits everything.
So who's going to be the receiver in that offense? And you cannot say the rookie.
It's
going to be Juju.
Come
no,
on.
it's going to be Juju.
I think Juju too, but yeah.
It's going to be Juju. I mean, you see the clear decline in his career tied with the clear decline in Ben Roethlisberger. We've literally seen Juju Smith-Schuster be a top 10 receiver. We've seen him be a target hog. We've seen him then, when targets were reduced, be a very incredibly efficient person in the red zone. He can do it. I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes. The connection there is going to be he's going to be he's going to be a target hog out of the slot.
Yeah, I don't buy it at all. I don't. Look, you could say that his decline was attached to Ben Roethlisberger. I go, no. Look at Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson actually got better.
It wasn't age.
Right.
What was the decline?
I never
How
thought
did Deontay Johnson keep getting better, though? How did Deontay Johnson get better? He was playing with the same declining Ben Roethlisberger as
because Deontay Johnson's skill set aligned with what Ben could specifically do.
With that noodle arm.
No. Deontay Johnson, if Deontay Johnson could catch the ball, he'd be Jahan Dotson. Okay, we know Johnson can't catch the ball. It's that simple. And yet he was still more productive than Juju Smith-Schuster. In fact, Juju Smith-Schuster and Ben Roethlisberger so tight that Juju decided to come back and run it back one more time with the Steelers, and yet they never connected. I know he got hurt last year, but the season before, no Juju rising here on this one. I will not get suckered into the Juju trap.
The season before, he was wide receiver 17.
Yeah, everyone's talking about him as a top 12 right now.
No, they're not.
Oh, yes.
He's talking about him as a top 12.
I think he's around the 15, 17 range. I think he's around there. Hold on.
He's not even close to that. Come on now. I give him 30 wide receivers. I don't even think I have him rated that high.
What ADP are you? Wait, what? I'm confused. What ADP are you looking at? Because I
See,
just
Major,
did a
this is how
video
you
of
get her
him.
off her stats.
I just did a
You
video of
just
him.
talk about all kinds of different things, and it throws her for a loop. When you start like, throwing fake stats with real stats, complete loss of words.
I see her malfunction. She's like,
He's wide receiver 34,
Look,
overall
she's off and
85.
everything.
I'm so confused.
I'm talking about the hype that people are going on there. He is quite. It's a weird dispersity there between people on, especially on Twitter or something right now.
Right,
There's people
Twitter.
that have him incredibly high up their rankings. I've seen him in
They're
some
not
people's
drafting him
top
there.
10. I've seen him ranked in the top 10. Why is he not getting drafted in the top 10? Because people know he's going to fall. I mean, that's how it goes. If you are, put your money where your mouth is, people. If you think Juju Smith-Schuster is a top 12 wide receiver, draft him in the first 2 rounds. I dare you to do that.
That sounds like people doing, I don't know, I'm not on that Twitter, but that sounds like people doing things for the Twitter, just trying to
No, Juju
Be
looks
the contrarian.
Come on
good.
now.
In practice, Juju is killing it. Like, he's looking really good. He's moving faster than I think he's faster than he was before, the injuries and all that. He looks in incredible shape. He looks like, he's the veteran in that offense right now. So everything adds up. And I think you get that Patrick Mahomes bump as well. Just like all the other receivers get out in the Bills and stuff like that, because you got Josh Allen there, so you get that Josh Allen bump. But yeah, I think Juju.
He's a great value pick.
I like him, but it's just I kind of want that to go to Miko. Miko's been waiting around for a little bit, and like I said, I got him too many teams.
I just can't get behind him. I don't see where people are throwing
Because
him
you're a
out
big
there.
old hater too. I'm on a show with 2 haters. That's all it is. Golly.
I am. Now, where did
He said
you
I
say
am.
Like, I got no problem admitting it. I mean, I'm stubborn. I got no problem talking about that, how stubborn I am when it comes to these things. And Juju for Smith-Schuster, he just doesn't do for me. Yeah, I think, sure, he was 16, 17, whatever it was in 2020. But you just told me that his decline was lined up with Ben Roethlisberger's decline. Ben Roethlisberger's been declining for 5-6 years, and yet he only had. Oh yes, he's been declining for about 5-6 years.
But nah, he
Ben
did
has not
fall
been good.
off. It wasn't gradual. It was like 2 seasons. It was done.
Just because you're putting up fantasy points doesn't mean you're still a good player.
True.
Ben Roethlisberger has been declining. He hasn't been taking those shots that ADOT has been dropping consistently over the years. I'm not in on Juju, and I love how we can have this argument here. Tara, go one more time before I move into DK Metcalf.
She's trying to blow her brain right now. She's like,
The decline was literally 2020 and 2021. That was it. He was hurt in 2019.
oh, now we got 2 stat people on this show.
2. It's
okay.
those 2 years. It's those 2 years.
I just
So
seen
he gets
Mac.
hurt every other year.
Hasn't been 5 years. Come on now.
You can have you go ahead and you draft your Juju Smith-Schuster. You go right ahead. I am avoiding him with all. I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole in any league right now.
What receiver? Sky Moore.
He's being drafted as a low-end wide receiver 3, as the number 2 guy being thrown to by Patrick Mahomes behind Travis Kelce.
In practice though, so yeah. And Miko hasn't been
you.
hurt either. Miko's been hurt a little bit, so I don't think he's been practicing that much. But yeah.
You really
Sky
think
Moore's
he
a
can't
better
finish
receiver.
as wide receiver 30?
Well, let's see where I have him in
fall
my
that. He
experts
could be top
rankings right
20.
now.
It's like he can go. I think he could be top 10. He has a talent. It's just like, can he put it all together? That's all it is.
I just don't think there's any realistic possibility he finishes lower than his current ADP.
Yeah, I'm with you on
Still
that.
might.
Lower than 30, yeah, that's pretty low to me. I don't know
Yeah.
for him, especially being if it works out, if he ends up being a wide receiver 1 in that offense, like he's going to finish in the top 20.
I think he's a solid wide receiver 2. I think that makes sense.
I think you guys are crazy. I'll be
Where do
honest.
you have him ranked? Expert
I
ranker?
have him ranked at 39.
Wow.
Yeah,
I will not put him, and I hate. I'm not a big fan of Gabriel Davis, but you're telling me right now you're taking him over Hunter Renfrow,
yes,
Allen Robinson, Gabriel Davis, Amari Cooper.
Not over Allen Robinson. But Allen
Chris
Robinson's
Godwin,
ADP
Devonta
isn't even
Smith.
like
I'll check him over.
Allen
Godwin.
Robinson's ADP isn't anywhere near Juju Schuster. Wait, what?
He's at
You guys on
22.
different
Robinson.
websites. You guys on different websites right now.
Robinson's ADP is currently at right around that 28 range, 29. Right now.
And
He's around
Juju is
29.
like 34.
Juju Smith-Schuster is right around 34. So 31 and 34 are pretty close together.
Where'd you get 31 from?
Basically,
You said 29.
I have him at 26. I'm one spot. I have him at 28. He's one spot higher. So sorry, 29. 29 and 34, that's 5 apart. That's still pretty close. I'm not Chris Godwin. He's in that same ballpark there. He's going at 21. I've got him lower in my rankings. I'm still not taking Juju Smith-Schuster over Chris Godwin. I'm not taking him over Devontae Smith. I'm not taking him over Mike Williams. These are the guys I have just ahead of him. Sky Moore, I got him one spot ahead of Juju. Adam Thielen, Jerry Jeudy. I still like these guys more than I like Juju Smith-Schuster.
I'm picking Juju over a lot of those guys you said. Maybe not Thielen. Maybe not. There's one more you just said. I forget because you ran a list off. But yeah, it's like 2 out of that list you just read off. That's no. Like, especially like if it works out the way it looks like it's going to work out, Juju being a number 1 receiver with Patrick Mahomes, like you can't be nothing less than a wide receiver 2. It doesn't, you know what I mean? You can't be the wide receiver 1 on Kansas City. You cannot be the wide receiver 4 as the wide receiver 1 in that offense. It's just too explosive. And he runs all the underneath routes and stuff like that. So he's going to have a lot more targets.
You mean he runs the same routes that Travis Kelce runs? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
You've been stubborn as hell. Let's go to DK Metcalf because I think we're not going to get him off.
We're gonna have along with the Jacoby Myers tracker. We've gotten so off track here. Along with the Jacoby Myers tracker, we're having the Juju tracker as well for Matt. We just got to have trackers for Matt.
We're going to fire up the Juju tracker where I got the guys ahead of him right there, right? That 27 to 39 range and see how he knocks that off. Anyway, DK Metcalf for me is that guy who's overhyped. I mean, and that's just on his name. It's not where his ADP is going. This is the who is overrated, who's overhyped, and DK Metcalf still carries that name. Look, he has experienced declines across the board from 2020. He saw the same amount of targets there, 129 last season, but he played in 1 more game last year. He saw 8 fewer receptions, 336 fewer yards, and now he's entering a season without Russell Wilson. I mean, we're talking about entering a season with Geno Smith, maybe Drew Lock, who's now out with COVID right now. So Drew Lock has pretty much lost that quarterback 1 job in Seattle, if he even had it. And when you look at this in 3 seasons there with Wilson, Metcalf has recorded an average of 14.6 fantasy points per game and scored 26 touchdowns. Now, that's with Russell Wilson. Geno Smith, statistically, in 2013, his best fantasy wide receiver was Jeremy Curley. Jeremy Curley, who had 43 catches for 534 yards and averaged 9.5 fantasy points per game. In 2014, Eric Decker led the team with 74 catches, 962 yards, and averaged 13.4.
Decker was a
Eric
baller.
Decker was the man.
Yeah.
So I think when we're looking at Geno Smith here and DK Metcalf, I think we're looking at a guy who's probably in that 65 to 72 catch range, who's going to probably be somewhere between 875 yards and 925 for DK Metcalf. And I don't think the touchdowns are going to be there as much as we like. We had a 4-game sample size, and that was great. That was a 4-game sample size last season. I don't think that gets the job done. And if I'm a DK Metcalf manager right now, I'm shopping him based on his name and hoping I get some kind of return of investment on him right now.
Yeah. But what about Drew Lock enters the equation? He looks pretty, like he's been doing pretty good in the offseason this year. He's making some noise. He looks a lot better than he did before.
I think Geno Smith has that locker room. I think he is a leader amongst men in there. I think the guys gravitate towards him. I don't think they have the same feelings for Drew Lock. And I think the coaches notice this. So I think this is going to be Geno Smith's team to start with. And Lock missing these next couple preseason games because he's got COVID, it doesn't help his case any further. So I'm pretty much banking on Geno Smith being that guy come week 1, week 2, week 3. And maybe if things get messy, maybe we see Drew Lock kind of scattered in there somewhere, but I just don't see it. Now, Tera, what's on your mind?
It's actually not that bad. I would be concerned if it was Drew Lock because it will be inconsistent. It's actually not that bad with DK Metcalf. You talked about the small sample size. You talked about the small sample size that we have. It was actually I know it's a small sample size, but it's actually a good sample size over that time period where they were aligned last year. DK Metcalf averaged 17.2 fantasy points per game in PPR, 14 of 18 targets. I mean, compared to where he's being drafted, that average compared to where he's being drafted at his ADP, I don't have a problem with him.
Isn't he going up towards about wide receiver 17 right now?
Yeah, and where will 17.2 fantasy points per game get you? It will get you as a wide receiver 1. So I'm okay with that.
You're looking at this as that 4-game sample size. It is what it is. But now we're going to try and stretch this over 18 games. You got to look if you're using that 4-game sample size, you also have to use Geno Smith's 2013-2014 sample size, which means absolutely nothing.
I don't have to use that because that's not.
And you have to use Gabriel Davis.
DK Metcalf.
You got to use
if that's
any
the case, then
video we have.
I'll grab anybody's 4-game average. I mean, like, no, it's not
go.
DK Metcalf. I'm looking at that specific connection between them. And I know it's not going to be the exact same average per game, but it's just to give you an idea of what it could be. Even if it went down a little bit, you're still not looking at someone who's not paying off for that ADP. I think wide receiver 17 is appropriate. You've got the appropriate discount. If he was going up there at wide receiver 12 or something, I'd be like, pump the brakes. That's a little risky. But you've got the discount. So I'm not highly concerned about it.
Yeah, for me, I got him at my wide receiver 23. I can't put him ahead of McLaren. I can't put him ahead of Bateman. There's some guys there, and I'm about to drop him probably in the next week or so. I got him just ahead of Christian Kirk, who I'm probably going to slide ahead of DK Metcalf here as the week progresses. I think that's probably how it's going to work out when it's all said and done. So I think I'm going to have DK Metcalf probably around wide receiver 25 once the season starts. If I can get him at wide receiver 25, obviously that's where I have him ranked. That's where I feel comfortable with him. But I don't feel comfortable at wide receiver 17. That's definitely not where I'm going to go with that. And as much as I piled on the Juju Smith-Schuster earlier, if I can get him at wide receiver 39, that's where I feel comfortable. You got him as a late wide receiver 3. If I get him as my wide receiver 4, I'm okay with that. It's just about where we see that value playing out. There's guys I prefer over Juju Smith-Schuster because of their same opportunities. And I kind of mentioned the guys that I had just above him. Will he move above a couple of those guys before we hit the regular season? Probably, but I don't see him cracking my top 30.
I just got to say, Tera, if you ever want to play poker with me, I am totally open to that. She cannot hold her face for anything. When she has something to say, she's like,
I know it's fantastic.
I might actually have a good poker face. You don't know this is intentional. This is my podcast mindset.
That's
psyching you out.
Okay,
it's called a take psych out.
I'm not falling for a double psych out. Come on, I'm not 5. Get out of here. She thinks she's talking to her kids right now, like doing a double fake out. I like it.
We're now me and Major gonna have to play poker together to see. I mean, just like, all right.
Well, if you want a few more poker chips, go over to fantasypoints.com, enter promo code Vipers22, and that'll save you 10% off today, which means more poker chips in the long run. You got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Head to fantasypoints.com, and this has been the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast. For Tera, for Major, I'm Matt Donnelly, and we will see you again next week here. So take care, comb your hair, and I got nothing else to go after that, so now, see ya.
I was waiting for it.